Welcome to the Esteros Critical Energy Facility. This is the Contractor Safety Orientation.
At Calpine, our intention is to promote a safe and productive work environment.
However, we can't do this without your help.
This orientation will discuss certain requirements that we expect our employees and contractors to adhere to.
Before we proceed with the orientation, let's start with filling in the top portion of the Contractor Site Safety Orientation form. The facility/location is Los Esteros Critical Energy Facility.
Contractor/company name is the company you work for. If you're being subcontracted, also write in the company that hired you.
Calpine sponsor. Write in the name of the Calpine person you'll be working with.
In contractor employee name, print your name, then fill in your job title.
Contractor representative is either your group representative, job foreman, or project manager.
Finally, your foreman's phone number.
Now, let's begin. We will first review emergency evacuation procedures.
In the event of a fire, each gas turbine unit is equipped with a fire alarm, horn/strobe warning system.
Each power distribution center has a fire alarm bell strobe. The administration office, control building, locker rooms, and fire pump house are equipped with fire alarm horn strobe indication.
In the event of an ammonia release, the ammonia unloading storage area is equipped with 4 leak detectors that, when activated, will sound an alarm.
A handheld megaphone is available for direct voice communication in situations where radios or telephones are not practical. This megaphone is also fitted out with a warning siren and tone capability.
Emergency evacuation maps are located throughout the facility. A copy of the evacuation map is also provided on the contractor handout you were given. Locate the nearest one to your work area and review the evacuation route from your work area to the assembly locations.
The primary assembly area is between the control room and the break room. The second, alternate assembly area is outside the site's north main gate, which is the gate you entered the facility from.
Once at the muster point, roll call will be taken. Personnel are to wait at the assembly area until the all clear is given. All permits are canceled in the event of an emergency. Remember to make sure equipment is secured before evacuating your area. At this point, we've covered emergency/evacuation procedures. Put an X or check mark next to the 4 items under Emergency/Evacuation Procedures section. Let's move on to reporting.
In the event of an incident, injury, or spill, inform the control room immediately. The control room number is 408-640-0056. Please program this number into your cell phone or make a note of it.
That's 408-640-0056. An automatic emergency defibrillator, or AED, is available in the control room. A first aid kit is also located in the control room. Inform the control room of an incident, and Los Esteros personnel will inform emergency crews, if necessary, to the type of emergency and location within the facility.
Spills, clutter, tripping hazards, open manholes, and missing signs are examples of unsafe conditions. Report any unsafe condition to the control room operator or any Los Esteros personnel immediately.
At this point, we have covered reporting. Put an X or check mark next to the 2 items under the reporting section. Let's move on to miscellaneous.
Smoking and tobacco. Smoking must be at least 25 feet from any door, window, or eating area. Smoking is prohibited at Los Esteros except in the designated area only.
The designated area is located on the west side of the warehouse building. Additional areas may be designated with the approval of site management.
Contractors are permitted to leave the facility for lunch or other breaks. The facility's break room is off limits to contractors unless specifically authorized by the Calpine representative.
During outages or periods of extensive work, portable restrooms and hand wash stations will be made available for contractors. These items will be serviced as often as needed. As a reminder, others working at the facility may utilize these services, and Los Esteros asks that you maintain restrooms and hand wash stations clean and orderly as possible.
Miscellaneous site security. Each contractor is required to announce to the control room their name, company name, and purpose for entering Los Esteros using the call box at the front gate.
Plant speed limit is 10 miles per hour.
After entering the facility, contractors must proceed to the control room and sign in.
There are a limited number of parking spaces on site. Spaces on the north side of the control building are not to be used. Contractors may park in the spaces located in front of the control room or the unpaved area north side of the control room.
All contractors will sign in and sign out when entering and leaving the facility.
Safety is the #1 priority at Los Esteros.
Contractors are required to observe all safety rules while on site.
Maintain a clean working area.
Los Esteros expects its contractors to work in a safe and professional manner.
No horseplay or fighting on site. Contract personnel caught doing so will be dismissed.
Biological resources. Los Esteros is situated in an ecologically diverse area. This area is home to several threatened and endangered animals, including the burrowing owl and the white-tailed kite. Do not disturb or touch any wildlife you encounter on site.
Report any wildlife encountered to the control room immediately. At this point, we've covered the miscellaneous. Put an X or check mark next to the 4 items under the miscellaneous section. Let's move on to hazardous material waste procedures.
Contractors that bring hazardous materials on site must
Provide safety data sheets for all chemicals.
comply with the OSHA Hazardous Communication Standard.
Use the appropriate safety precautions when handling hazardous materials. All containers with hazardous materials must be properly labeled.
Remove any unused materials and waste generated.
In the event of a spill, notify the control room immediately.
At this point, we've covered the hazardous materials waste procedures. Put an X or a check mark next to the 4 items under the hazardous materials / waste procedures section. Let's move on to process information.
Los Esteros Critical Energy Facility is a combined cycle power generation facility with a maximum output of 309 megawatts. There are 5 generators, 4 driven by gas turbines, and 1 is driven by a steam turbine. Gas turbines use natural gas as their combustion fuel. Exhaust from the gas turbines contain large amounts of thermal energy. This energy is used to generate high pressure and high temperature steam in the heat recovery steam generators, or HRSGs. This steam then powers the steam turbine. After the steam turbine, the steam is condensed to water in the condenser and sent back to the HRSGs for reheating and steam generation.
The main source of water for this facility is recycled water. Although highly treated, recycled water is non-potable and must never be used for human consumption. Contractors, unless accompanied by Los Esteros personnel or conducting work in these areas, are prohibited from the power distribution centers, switchyard, chemistry lab, warehouse and maintenance shop, satellite workshop, hazardous materials and waste storage area, the administrative building, and all chemical storage areas.
At this point, we have covered the process information. Put an X or check mark next to the 3 items under the process information section. Let's move on to hazard communication.
Los Esteros has too many chemicals to list individually in this presentation.
A chemical inventory is available upon request.
Bulk chemical liquids include 6,000 gallons of sulfuric acid and 5,500 gallons of sodium hypochlorite.
These are located on the west side of the facility, above a containment structure that can capture the full contents of the tank.
These chemicals are corrosives.
Los Esteros has 2 10,150-gallon tanks of 19% aqueous ammonia located at the south end of the plant that is used to control nitrous oxide emissions.
Safety controls include containment and perimeter airborne ammonia sensors. The system is monitored continuously.
Crane operations must be vigilant of swing booms and loads when working in the area. During a release due to a line break, exposures could be as low as 5 parts per million and as high as 200 parts per million, depending on numerous factors. Should this occur, immediately leave the area. Do not attempt any corrective actions.
SDSs are available online at www.3eonline.com. And contractors may examine all SDSs associated with work to be done.
The SDSs can be accessed from any computer. Both the username and password for the website is quote-unquote West Region. If ever there is a question regarding chemicals or any aspect of the job to be done, speak with the site personnel. At this point, we have covered the hazard communication. Put an X or check mark next to the 3 items under the hazard communication section. Let's move on to personal protective equipment. Proper work attire is required. Site-required minimum PPE, ANSI Z87 eyewear, ASTM approved safety footwear, ANSI hard hat approved for electrical facilities, hearing protection.
Additional PPE may be required for the job, such as, but not limited to, welding,
Electrical, arc flash rated, respiratory,
or chemical protective equipment.
At this point, we've covered the personal protective equipment. Put an X or check mark next to the 9 items under the personal protective equipment section.
Let's move on to specific safety information. At Los Esteros, contractors along with site personnel are required to use and follow site safety programs. Among these are Safe Work Permit, Lockout Tagout, Confined Space Entry Program, and Hot Work Permit.
Contractors working at this facility may find themselves using one or any combination of these safety programs. Violation of any of Los Esteros' safety programs may result in dismissal.
Before starting any job, you must complete an SWP. SWPs are to ensure all workers are aware of hazards that may be encountered.
The foreman or lead employee is responsible for writing the SWP, and all workers must review and sign prior to commencing work each shift. The control room operator will utilize the SWP to determine what additional work permits are necessary. Any deviation from the initial SWP discussion shall be reported to the control room operator.
Lockout, tagout.
Esteros will ensure that equipment will be in a locked-out condition to ensure it is safe to work on. All valves, breakers, switches, and other isolation devices, as required, will be physically locked out, and the keys to the locks will be placed in a lockbox. You are responsible for ensuring that equipment has been put in a safe condition before working on it.
This includes verifying stored energy has been removed, isolation points are in the proper position, and are locked to prevent inadvertent operation.
Los Esteros operations will assist you by isolating, bleeding, and locking the equipment as needed per the work scope you provide.
Before working on equipment, you must 1. Review the lockout paperwork and verify the following.
The scope of work is correct. The equipment identified is the equipment that is to be worked on. That an authorized employee has verified de-energization and proper isolation. The above authorized employee has placed a lock on the lockbox.
2. Place your lock onto the lockbox. 3. Sign on to the lockout. When you've completed your work, either at the end of the shift or at the completion of the job, this is to be cited by the Calpine sponsor, remove your lock, sign off of the lockout.
Lockout, tagout, sign-on flow. Step 1. Operator locks out device and places the key on the lockbox. Step 2. Worker second checks device, verifies the equipment is in a safe condition and is properly isolated, and locks on the lockbox. Step 3. Workers sign on to the lockout. Lockout, tagout, satellite lock boxes. Utilized when many people are working on the same job and when approved by management.
Foreman will lock on to the control room lockbox. Foreman's key will be placed into the satellite lockbox.
Workers will follow the same procedure as outlined in the previous slides to lock onto satellite lockbox and to sign on to the satellite sign-on sheet. Workers will report off the remote lockbox at the completion of the job or at the end of every shift as determined by the Calpine sponsor.
Step 1. Operator locks out device and places key in control room lockbox.
Step 2. Foreman locks on the control room lockbox and places their key in the satellite lockbox.
Step 3. Worker places lock on the satellite lockbox and signs onto the LOTO form.
Hot work permits. A hot work permit must be obtained and authorized by the control room operator before commencing any work that may create an exposed flame or produce sparks.
The control room operator shall be notified immediately preceding the start of this work and shall be notified when it is completed.
The only exception to the above is work that is performed within the welding area on the east side of the warehouse building.
Confined space permits. Any vessel or area within limited access and egress that can be bodily entered and was not designated for continuous occupancy is classified as a confined space.
Before entering any confined space, you will need to obtain a confined space permit from the control room operator. At this time, a review of the confined space procedure, the options of reclassifying the space, and the possible need for an attendant will be reviewed. Requesting permits. The more lead time you can provide the control room operator of the permits you require, the better. Request permits the day before you need them, so they will be ready at the beginning of your shift.
Specific safety information. During the course of work, contractors may be permitted to use the site's man lift with prior approval. However, prior to using the man lift, requester must show competency in operating the man lift.
Los Esteros expects contractors to examine all hand and power tools for proper operations, such as sticking triggers, for defects, frayed cords or missing safety guards, and for task adequacy. Do you have the right tool to do the job safely? Site personnel, as well as contractors, are to abide by the scaffold tag requirements. All cranes, hoist, and rigging equipment is to be inspected before use and shall only be used for its intended use. Only qualified persons shall utilize this equipment. In addition, all substantial lifts shall have a lift plan written and reviewed before performing the lift.
Work that exposes a worker to a fall hazard of 4 feet or more requires fall protection. However, with the use of fall protection, the risk of suspension trauma is possible if you fall.
Contractors who might expose their employees to a fall of greater than 4 feet must ensure that all their employees are fully trained on the use and hazards of fall protection. This training should include the hazards associated with suspension trauma. No contractor shall perform work that requires fall protection unless at least 2 people are present. Contractors who utilize fall protection must have a plan and the means to rescue their employees should they require it. At this point, we've covered the specific safety information. Put an X or check mark next to the 12 items underneath the specific safety information section. If all information has been understood, sign your name next to contract employee signature and put today's date and hand in your form to the individual giving the orientation. Thank you.